Do we have any minutes today?
Yeah.
We do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Oh.
must have missed this.
I
I apologize.
might have thought it's simple.
Okay.
I can
All right.
get to you next time.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
But I,
We
yeah, I
will
do.
table the
All right.
minutes
Okay.
from the last meeting
Yeah.
until the next meeting.
It's all right. I'll check it next time.
Thanks. Our first order of business, then we go to public hearings, and the first one is 115 Orchard Avenue, where they have requested to demolish the accessory building associated with their house. So we have a little bit more information here. Looks like. And then there was this question the last
Yeah.
time.
So, a couple things. One, we have a bit more information, thanks to, thanks Tim. We also have the city attorney here to speak on behalf of what the powers and authority we have in terms of the, board's amendments. And then we also have the applicant, I imagine, wants to speak and his intent. So I don't know what the order you want to go through those things.
All right, I guess it would be good if we can have the attorney answer the question.
Sure.
When we get a request for demolition and when we vote on it, are we able to make any sort of recommendations or say anything that they would need to do in the realm of, say, since it's in the historic district, what materials to use, or,
You mean in the event of a future project?
yeah, for a future project, we would like to see something in some manner similar. I don't mean to get too carried away.
No, I know
with
what
it,
you're saying. So my answer in short form is no. And the reason why is because you have in front of you a request for demolition. It's a short order request, okay? Anything else you would do would be purely speculative. And if you come back to the ultimate theory of what you're all doing, you're limiting the use of land, okay?
Mhm.
So in this instance, because that constitutes a taking in some way, shape, or form, we have to be very careful to stay within those lines. And so when someone comes to you for a demolition, and you've gone through the assessment in terms of whether it's a significant building, whether it has historical significance, should be safe. Once you've made that decision, then the only thing to decide at that point is yes or no on the demolition.
Okay.
And so in this instance, if the answer is no, what happens in the future would come back through you or perhaps through ARB for what is going to go there, and then those questions would be decided. But for our purposes, for the demolition purpose,
Okay, so we cannot tie the two things together, basically.
May
Okay.
may I ask a quick follow-up?
sure, of course.
Could we make some sort of, for want of a better term, non-binding type recommendation or a request that any future project might reflect the design of the historic building in some manner to be determined by the homeowner and their designers?
So be careful because of course, ARB, which you know all about, ARB makes those same decisions and those same recommendations, okay? The fact that you said it's a non-binding recommendation, you can say anything as long as it's clear that it's non-binding. Here's my concern about doing that though. If you say to a homeowner, here's what we want you to do in the future. That homeowner might try and take that to the bank, as it were, and say, hey, we're doing this. Then you'd have the ARB say, we don't like this part of it.
Yeah.
Now you've run into a conflict, okay? So stay within your lane is really the safest way to say it. Again, because all of those questions are going to be dealt with at the next level when there is a project that comes forward that has plans that are submitted that are going to be reviewed. All of those things are going to be answered.
Yeah, and so when projects come to us at the ARB, we don't have any background information about what was there. That's why, that's why I asked that.
No, and it's a fair question. I get it. But again, this HPC is such an important role. And you have a lot of language in your ordinances that establish what you guys do because your power is so profound, okay? And so that power in its usage has to be very careful.
I understand.
Because what you're doing is limiting the use of property. And so, again, my thought on these sorts of things is we have to be careful. We have to have bright lines that we follow. And again, it is tough from the ARB's perspective, but remember, that's ARB. You're HPC.
I'm also ARB.
I know, but in here, you're HPC, so that's your HPC hat. You have to make sure you're wearing that.
Yeah, I think I have a point of view, and so does Angela, because we served on both boards. So we know what information comes in front of us.
Right, right. And so again, I understand we have to be careful to keep what you're doing as this commission separate from what ARB does.
Is it? So I guess to me, I would like to see as an ARB member, what happened, what was demolished, because it is important in a historic district in particular.
Mhm.
So, I mean, everywhere else in town, not important.
Right.
But in the district, it is important where you're doing things, and maybe not in an overly restrictive way necessarily, just as much as you, as an ARB member, you might look at it differently, whereas they're coming from it trying to tell you, well, the house was like, there was a building here, so we're trying to do this. When you're thinking it looks cockeyed, but they're following something
Sure.
historic, right? You know, it might be to their advantage to be able to say, look, this is what it looked like.
Sure, and so what you're saying is I want to make a decision contextually. I want to
Yes.
know staff is going to hate me. But you could say as ARB, hey, can you give me the HPC file that was there? If there was a building here that was demolished, there's a record of that.
Right.
We have something, you can ask for that. I mean, that's the beautiful, and I'm not trying to make work for staff, sorry, Joel. I'm not trying to make work for staff, but if you thought that that was meaningful to you, it's there. These records are your records to use.
And to be honest, this is an ARB conversation, not an
I understand.
HPC conversation, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
You're good.
But
But
it does tie together. It does make a difference in how, and I understand we're acting as the Historic Preservation Commission right now.
Right.
But also acting as the Historic Preservation, sometimes there is a question of, well, what are they gonna get to do?
Sure,
If we say this, then what happens?
right.
And
And,
Neil, that can't be part of the decision making, right?
And
It's not part of this decision making.
right,
And I understand that it might be something that's hovering in the back of their mind, but it really is, it's the application in front of you. It's the four corners of the paper in front of you, which you have
Yeah.
to look at. And then again, whatever comes next goes through its own process.
right.
And so you're gonna have nice people like you, Angela, who serve on two different boards and give your time to the city, who are gonna make those decisions. What I'm saying to you is that if you are on the ARB and you're not sure what was there before, or maybe you want to show it to everybody else, you can ask for that record and bring it into ARB.
Yeah, okay. So actually, as this board, though, I think it's good to know that there is some continuity in the whole
Yes.
thing. I think from the homeowner's standpoint, they would want to know there's some continuity in what they've come to, they went before us and we said this here, don't, do this or don't do that or whatever we said. They would want to know there's continuity down the line, not it's just now it's up for another group of people. So,
Right, you're not silent,
There-
and you don't have to be silent. But again, your decision making is limited to the four corners of the
Yeah.
paper in front
and
of
so
you.
once we've made our decision, that decision can pass on to whoever.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
So
That's
one
good.
other thing I want to throw out before you go to the decision, one of the things we're trying to do is reach out to boards and commissions and bring everybody up to date on any changes in the law, what's happened, significant court cases and that sort of thing. So at some point in the future, in the not so distant future, I'm going to ask you guys to schedule me so that we can come in and have a discussion about basically where we are with the law and changes we've seen. Part of it is to give you a primer, which you guys already know because you've all served for a while, is to give you a primer on each of the issues that you have to decide and put it in sort of bullet points that you guys have always had in front of you, always know what's going on. And again, nobody can say we're not going outside our lanes if you do that. So I'm going to take a little bit of your time, but I won't make it a long evening by any means. We'll do it within less than half an hour. But think about this because I want you to put it on a schedule when it's meaningful to you.
And maybe I'm stepping over the line here, if you don't mind me making one other comment. Part of the reason we are concerned about people sort of staying in their own lanes is if you all are doing things outside your authority and someone wants to challenge the authority of the city to regulate, that's how they challenge us. And so this is also a protection of the rules we have in place across the different boards and commissions too.
And that has not happened, but we're trying to make sure that we're being preemptive. Right?
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
And so, I'm sure Webster Groves is concerned with the integrity of its buildings and how they look. And so the processes that you mentioned, what does that look like? Say if my wife and I wanted to demolish our home and we go before the board to begin to demolish, but we want to erect something that does not reflect the character of Webster Groves, who makes that decision?
Well, ARB would first and foremost, you go in front of ARB unless it's in a historic district, and then you've got to balance those two things, right?
Okay,
But it ultimately, if you, and again, we're getting a little off track, but I want to make sure I answer your question. ARB has a general prescription that says you're supposed to maintain the flavor of the neighborhood, that sort of thing, but it also says it's important that we have change, that there be progression, that there be, different architectural styles and that sort of thing. And maybe it's not the same as the house next door or the three houses next door. Maybe it's something different, but they're supposed to use their discretion. And we trust their discretion because, I mean, these are people who give their time and energy to the city, right? They use their discretion to decide whether it works. So that's how it flows. But we're
Thank you.
putting a limit on your use, so we have to be very careful about how we exercise that discretion.
thank you.
Yes. Is that fair enough for you two ARB members?
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we understand, because sometimes, I understand what you say, and I'm
Yeah.
not arguing, but it just that, here's something for y'all to consider when you build something in the future. You might want to think about doing something that in some ways reflects this building.
And that never gives me heartburn.
Okay.
Again, saying that sort of thing look, I'm just trying to give you the benefit of my experience. Use it as you will.
Yeah, that's what I think that I'm kind of getting at. So if we can just mention to people, here's something for you to consider.
Sure.
And you have a beautiful historic property, and to kind of maintain the integrity, you might want to consider in a future project using some elements of this existing historic structure to honor what was there. And but that's entirely up to the homeowner.
But that's the benefit of your experience and you should. I try to do that with my children all the time. And they almost never use.
Well, it's worth a try.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so basically then we're down to a yes or no vote, which is fine.
Can I,
But I still want to
can I
have a little more
apologize
discussion.
for this question? I asked you and Elliot actually about, because I listened to the last one. I wasn't here, but I listened to the recording. And I was get a little confused about it. It's probably what you were addressing about, okay, can we tell them they have to put these windows on this side and all, or is that something ARB does? Sounds like it's ARB.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I just wanted to kind of catch up.
Yes, you're right. Yeah,
Okay.
because you weren't here. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, we did have that. And I guess I brought up the question myself. And I was just kind of curious. Can we do that sort of thing? What is our process? Just to make sure. Like if there's something we're supposed to be doing, did we miss something? You never know. Sometimes you just get in a habit of doing things and there was something we could have been doing or we're supposed to do. Who knows what it is? So that's part of the reason for the question. But then in the historic district, we all know certain character. We don't want to lose it.
Sure.
It's what makes Webster Groves certain Webster Groves.
There was wording in our charter that brought this confusion up.
The
Can't remember
amendment.
yeah, that was the
I
word.
believe that means an amendment on the behalf of the applicant, right? They've amended, I assume.
So. That's
So
what I
are you
guess to
talking about the
clarify.
approve, deny, or approve with amendments?
Yes.
So there's steps in the process. So when you're talking under HBC of that sort of thing, you're talking about the certificate of appropriateness.
Yes.
Yes. So that's what you're talking about there. When you come down to demolition, once you've made the decision about whether the building is historically significant or not, then it's a simple question of yes or no. But it's not yes or no, yes with amendments. Demolition is demolition. So, now where there could be some issues, and I will throw out this caveat, is if you're talking about a primary structure where you're not demolishing all of it, knocking off a wing or something like that. That might be a little bit different, but that's not what you're dealing with.
Okay, are there any more questions on that specific of the question? What, we just do yes or no here? Demo, don't demo. Okay, so then we also have some new information about the property, right?
Yeah, so last time it was just unclear when that carriage house was built because it's not on the building permit. There's not a separate building permit for it. And even on the permit itself, that says there's not an existing structure already on the lot. So I went back and looked at the tax records from 1896 up to 1923. And the owner of that lot also built the house at 237 Rosemont. And he owned a lot of those lots, and they were consistently assessed as empty lots. So there wasn't any pre-existing structure on there before the house was built that I could see. And then I did remember that we have what's called Sanborn Insurance Map. Sanborn was an insurance company, and they would go through neighborhoods and indicate structures on a map. And we do have the 1924 Sanborn maps, and it does have clearly the a garage was or a carriage house was on that lot when they drew that map out, when they assessed that property for an insurance in 1924. So that led me to believe that the carriage house was either unpermitted when the house was built, or it was just an add-on while they were building the house. If there was a separate permit, it could have been lost, but it's clear that the garage or carriage house was there when the house was built. And even the note on the insurance map indicates an A, which means autos for it's a garage. Yeah. I just kind of, or I guess, dotted the I on that issue.
So it was at least something, and it was built before 1924, and.
Yeah, so the house was built in 1923, and I assume the garage was built in 1923 as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
I've been in that carriage house before, by the way. Some time back, because there are neighbors, that move there, and it's rough. It's in rough condition, very rough. So it'd be a big ask to remodel that.
yeah, we have the photographs that show it's pretty distressed.
Yes, yeah.
That was the. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, right. So. Would anyone here like to speak about the?
Yeah, I know we discussed last meeting, but I just want to reiterate those points, mainly that, sort of looking at your determination of whether or not to grant those sort of, the factors that the ordinance talks about, is mainly that it would be a very, difficult and expensive remodel of the structure. Secondly, it's very small for a modern garage, so even an expensive remodel, you're probably only parking one car in that garage. It's 20 feet wide. Thirdly, it's built over the easements by a few feet. So also that limits our ability, if we wanted to say add on to it, or say it's unlikely, but if something a utility needed to access that easement, it could be some sort of push pull of whether or not the structure needs to be moved or at least modified. So I just want to reiterate that's kind of our
Thank you. So does the board have any other questions or anything? Commissioners, okay, and is there anyone else here to speak about it? This is a public hearing.
Without knowing what conditions would be put on a new structure, feel limited as to what I can say. I'm not enamored with the old building as much as their concerns as to the demolition process, but that's a completely different matter. No, I just would prefer that the orientation remains such that that I don't have a garage that is facing west if it maintains the entrance from the north, then I have, it allows me to retain a degree of privacy that is going to be restricted, mitigated. And given that I'm 15 feet from it, that's where it's 15 feet from the only private area of my house outside. So therein lies my concern.
And I'm sorry, could you please state your name? Your
My
name
is
is
Susan Wood. I live at 237 Rosemont. And my property is perpendicular to the new owners. And so, familiarity with it. It's more in my sight, line of sight than 150.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, does anyone have any questions for anybody who spoke? Okay. I'm sorry.
There's one person.
Oh, okay.
He's just with my office.
He's just listening. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so if we don't have any more comments or discussion, do we have a motion for the demolition of application on 115 Orchard Avenue, the garage? Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The demolition, application for 115 Orchard Avenue, the garage, only has been approved. Thank you very much for your patience. All right. Let's see, next order of business.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You guys can go.
Thank you.
Or you can stay if you'd like.
Yes, I'm thinking.
I said, you guys are quiet, we're gonna go get an ice cream. That's what we're gonna go do now. Bye. See ya.
Back there.
To the point. They were quiet, I think.
This, doesn't know if there's any in my system.
Oh.
I think they're.
You want me to walk with you?
No, I'm looking at them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So next order of business, visitor comments. Have any other visitors, or I guess that person left? So we have no other visitors. And then our new business, everything's old business, isn't it?
Everything is old business. The only other two things are the website that she's working on in his plan.
Rocky.
All right. Do you have new business?
Well, you can tell me if it's new or old, but could you maybe talk about the planning commission action last night?
Yes, I can talk about that.
Oh, okay. Check that off my updates.
Yeah.
Please.
So the plan commission voted on the draft, on the final draft for the comp plan last night. They did have some comments in terms of improving the process. Not obviously the comp plan has been voted on, but in general, they did set an expectation that by the next meeting, there'd be some type of write-up for how to better integrate other commissions and plan commission in terms of voting on things. So that way they just make sure that everyone's feedback and all stakeholders that would be involved can get their voice into the conversation. I think that was something that they kind of felt was lacking, that they didn't get enough comment period during it, and they didn't have enough of the other boards, particularly HBC, involved in it. So kind of the gist if you want to add anything.
Yeah, if I might add a couple of things. So yes, and I just to expand a little bit on that. You all will get your letter from me and from Councilmember Alexander. Your budget was approved. I just didn't want to bring that letter without her here because she hasn't seen it yet. But one of the things that we'll say, or does say in that letter, is that once the comp plan is approved, now that I'm assuming it will be, council obviously has to act. One of the things that we as council will do will begin to prioritize some of the things in there for further action, which means there's a great likelihood that within the next year, we can't do everything at once, so please be patient with us. But within the next year or so, we will refer a few things from the comp plan to you all for your deliberation and your advice on those. And some of those things will go to you, and then we'll also go to the plan commission. Some of what Joel's talking about is we need to figure out, does that happen sequentially? How does that work so that everyone's advice can be used when we come up with different kinds of recommendations that are based on the comp plan? So we're right now very aware of process of implementation to make sure all of you who have served and commented along the way also are there when we write the specific regulations that implement the plan. The schedule, tentatively, the public hearing for the comp plan in front of council is August 19th, with a potential in that meeting 2 weeks later for us to pass it. That's really ambitious. My guess is that we will have the public hearing. There'll be some additional council discussion in the next meeting, and it will probably be sometime in September. So please feel free to, pay attention to that. And if you've looked at the comp plan and you have anything that you might like to be discussed, find me, find a council member. We want to make sure that we're adopting a plan that we can use for at least the next decade in really good land use proper processes that, help us grow in the right ways with the right factors involved. I think that was on my council update, so thank you.
Is there more you'd like I know that you attended the meeting as well.
Yeah, I listened, but I didn't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt a certain degree of frustration by the plan commission by not feeling like they were fully integrated into the whole planning process. That maybe they would have liked to know about issues that pertain to other, like, I'm making this up because I don't remember, public works, for example. That there was sort of a reluctance, and the other thing they felt that they didn't have all their comments adjudicated. And some people, you could tell, read the plan carefully and had comments, everything from typos to more substantive. And when what is his name? The planning guy.
Elliot.
Oh, Elliot.
No, not Elliot, the planner, Josh.
From
Lakota.
Oh, Josh,
Sort of like, well, no, we just didn't adjudicate all your comments, sorry. And I felt some,
and just to add, one of the things, and I know that Ellen Hickson Shepherd, who is the liaison to the planning commission, I actually watched the meeting this morning. I am going to meet with several members of the planning commission who had some issues. All of the comments that went from planning commission members to Lakota Group and to staff will also come to council members, and we're going to get those as we are reading the draft and submitting our own. So anything that wasn't adjudicated that that still seem like open-ended policy questions. I'm hoping that we will have a consensus for that among council. One of, I think, the challenges of the plan commission process was the way it proceeded was that, one concern from one member of the plan commission wasn't necessarily consistent with another concern from, and sometimes, I've read them all now, and sometimes they were perfectly opposite one another. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that my job as mayor, as we consider the document, is to make sure that when we are talking to the Lakota Group, we're talking to the Lakota Group about things that council has a consensus on. It's not a concern of one member. In the same way you have to work as a group, we have to work as a group, which is also why I think that plan is really ambitious to get it done in that time frame. Is that we need some time as council to have that discussion, make some decisions about whether we have recommendation for changes or not. So we are going to spend some time at the council level trying to make sure we've done some of the things that the plan commission members felt we fell short on during their process.
This is just my listening. I haven't been that involved with the process to this point, but I'm just, from what the commissioners were saying, I felt that's what came through to me.
Well, and I would just add to that, in the end, people seemed really very happy with the plan itself. And I think that's what we can't lose sight of, that what we're working on is the plan. And it didn't seem to impede the process didn't seem to impede anyone supporting the plan. Because they all voted for it, so.
I read it, it's good. I like it.
Well, you can't please everyone all the time.
Yeah.
So.
But
going
you
to
know,
someone.
but I think also it's important for us to reflect on what our process shortcomings might be and correct for that. That's just part of how you get better.
Well, and actually a little criticism of things is always helpful.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
I keep telling that to my wife.
You do realize it's important.
Maybe not all more than enough.
You're not always helpful. Sometimes. Keep it to yourself. Okay. Let's see, we have. So you guys haven't done anything as our group for the.
Conservation.
You were waiting till it was.
We were waiting, yeah, we were waiting for the council to approve the comprehensive plan. And when I was reading the plan, I thought I could tell that there was a recommendation for boards and commissions to be involved in the implementation, but it really didn't say how. So I'm very glad to know that once the plan is adopted, that the council will be reaching out to us with specific assignments. So we don't have to try to guess what we need to do.
Right.
That
And
sounds great.
yeah, and so there are a number of, part of that is just the matter of playing traffic cop, right? Because, you know, there are a lot more boards or commissions than we can input and put on our agenda, everything you might want us to consider at any given time. So part of it, and that is really true for our staff. So we have to make sure that we're doing it in a fashion that gives staff enough time to work on it, gives council agenda enough time, it gives you all enough time to seriously feel, not seriously, to feel really good about whatever recommendations you're making to us, that you've had the time to take to do that too.
Right, and I think it would help to eliminate any duplication of efforts between boards and commissions that might overlap or contradict if we kind of let y'all quarterback who's doing what about what issue.
And remember, we may have some conflicts across board and commission. You all may have a different idea than the plan commission about the way certain things in the comp plan ought to be implemented. And that's okay, because, you know, it's our job to get as much information as we possibly can in making a decision. But I do agree with you about the duplication of effort. If we're having people both work on things, it's because they have a particular perspective that we need on whatever that issue is.
We have, as a commission, haven't really voted on whether that's that's particularly important to us as a commission.
But
You've got the conservation
well,
district.
I
for
think
example.
that we put the conservation district subcommittee together to move forward with it because it was important to us.
Right, but that's just a group. I don't think we have had a collective decision. That's where we want to spend our time.
Well, it's
We
all,
haven't done that yet.
it's
I don't
all, it's
recall
on, all on hold now.
Yeah.
Is the status.
that. Yeah,
So that's on hold. We are not moving forward with anything right now.
yeah.
The comprehensive plan needs to be adopted by the city council, and then based on the mayor's comments, they will be contacting us when it's time to implement the recommendations that are in the plan. So we're on hold for that for now.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought you were wanting to present that as part of this plan.
No.
Now, okay, that's good.
No, because you're right. They haven't they didn't put something together and present it to us. None of that has happened. No, none of that has gone on. No, not at all. We haven't gotten that far. So, right, that would be down the line. For someone. Okay,
Did you want to talk about the website and?
the website.
Okay, we've got, John, did you want to give us an update about what Missouri Digital Heritage status and what the possible
Yeah, can I have
alternatives
the-
are?
So
Keyboard and mouse.
so there's some instruction for you.
Last time when we called up that state parks website that lists all the historic districts, I thought there could be a better way for everyone here to access it and the general public as well. And this might end up being how we do all the historic buildings that we talked about, because I found out that Missouri Digital Heritage, that division of the state library had a 50% reduction in staff. And so it's not that the website is going to go away, but it might be more difficult to get the support that we need to do this in a timely fashion. Because I've been emailing who's the person supposed to be my contact, and I just don't hear back. That kind of thing. But we do have a backup plan. So,
Sorry.
I did this with.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to share the screen so that anybody walking
yeah.
in.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
I don't think we had any attendees.
I know, but if somebody wants to go back in time.
Oh,
watch it,
okay.
yeah.
So I use the districts and buildings that are on the National Register as sort of a test for this. And so if you go to our website,
That's the library website.
the library's website, wgpl.org. And under,
Yeah, you might want to move to that. Yeah, you can drag it. I think you can also like make it disappear too. Or change the.
so then under local history, reference local history, I created this link here. This goes to our, what we call our Webster Groves Historical Archive, where we have all kinds of things on it, but I created 2 collections. So this describes what it is. So I put the documentation that's on that state parks website here. And then have a link to that website as well. So for the historic districts, for example, I created individual, these are the PDFs that are on that state website. And I also took this map, which was on the city's website, and I updated it to include the Marshall Avenue Historic District, which wasn't on there. Okay. So if you click on
District is misspelled up there.
district.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, thanks, yeah. And
Sorry, former copy editor.
This happens never.
My son.
So,
I just know how to spell it right. Like, everything.
And so, yeah, so I have so each one of these,
So anyone can go to the Webster Groves Library.
and so,
look at the references for local history,
Right.
which is a very, to me, an obvious
Right.
thing to do.
Right.
User friendly, and get this information.
Yes.
So it's already
Right.
much better than what we had.
yeah,
Right.
and so instead of searching through that state list
Yeah.
for Central Webster Historic District, you can just click on that. And then you can, that's in the way. Up here, you can download the PDF.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
And it's actually better to do that than using the viewer, because you can, anyway. And so if you download it. And there it is, the whole thing is there.
Wonderful. That is great.
So,
So great.
Great job.
Yeah.
so I did that for the historic districts. And I'm gonna go back.
Every house in the historic district?
No, these are just, this is the, so these are the applications that were submitted to make these districts on the National Register of historic places.
National,
So
the
each-
national register, not the local.
So your house, if your house is in one of our districts, though, it is in the form.
Correct.
And that's
Yeah.
what we look at.
Right, yeah, this came up last week because we looked at the Webster Park Historic District for the 115 Orchard.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of wonky to go to that state website to find these things.
Yeah, because
Um,
this saves having, what John did is excellent, because you can use the library's website instead of having to search through every district in the state, through the state's website. So this will be a lot more handy for everyone.
Now, does it have the local historic districts on
Uh,
there?
the only one that's a city designated one is this Marshall Avenue Historic District. And there wasn't an application like there is for the National Register. So what I did here is, we had the city ordinance that, that defined, that the city ordinance to make it a historic district, and then I tagged onto it this document that we had at the library, which was done in 1985 by the state parks. And it's a history of the Marshall Avenue Commercial District. So we have both of those things there. And this one's also got photos and all kinds of other stuff that the city ordinance didn't
John,
have.
what's the map that you just scrolled past?
This,
Next.
yeah, it's just the city of Webster Groves map. Yeah.
Locates it.
So yeah, they have it located up here. You can see.
So that's I guess, St. Louis, and then that's Webster. Is that what I'm looking
It
at?
says St. Louis County.
County, yeah, I'm not sure where they got this map from, but
Okay.
it's, yeah, it's just it's a map of, yeah, it was included in this document, this historic survey of the Marshall Avenue.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So,
As a citizen, that's wonderful work.
and then, so I also have the buildings on the National Register as well, so it's the same thing, the applications, to put those on there are all here.
Right?
Wonderful.
So, as I mentioned with the city landmark buildings that we've talked about putting on Missouri Digital Heritage, this might be our backup plan. So we would have a page that had all 50 whatever, and you could just click on them and open them up that way.
And then
That's a
also
great idea.
too, when, if we proceed with getting everything on the library site, then hopefully sometime in the future, when the state is recovering staff, maybe then we could go forward at the state level.
Yeah, like I said, Missouri Digital Heritage is still there. I'm just concerned about being able to get the help we need in a timely way whereas to do this, all of that, to put all of these up here only took, maybe 2 or 3 hours. I mean, it doesn't take long. As long as we have the PDF, it's just a simple matter of uploading them, and yeah, it's just pretty simple.
That was every house.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, so
on the-
once we have
the house.
exactly, once we have the PDFs of the 50 some odd buildings that are city landmarks, then we could do something similar with those. And some of these are also on that list, so we'd have them in both places.
Great work, John.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very
That's
much.
a lot of work.
So. And we can also put a link, actually, Joel, this Biblioboard service that we use, you can only access it from our website. So like, I can't send you this link up here to go directly to. So I'm gonna contact our vendor and see if there's a way I can do that instead of having to go onto our website specifically to get to it. But it's easy enough to do it that way. So we have it under reference, local history. It's also down here at the bottom. We have our historic archive link where they have all of the things that we have. Our yearbooks or photos and maps and school district stuff and all that stuff that we put up there.
Are you finding people coming in and asking for this kind of information? Into the library?
Oh, we get, I probably help 5 or 6 people a month on researching their house history,
Namely today, today.
including one today. Yeah.
I know.
So, yeah, so for house history, the maps are useful, and then we've got all the building permits and tax records. Full collections of both.
They don't start until 19.
Yeah,
Tell
building
me.
permits started being issued in 1908, yeah. So. But there are other ways to find that.
Are those insurance map on there?
No,
That is.
Yeah, that's the next thing I want to do is get those on there, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Impressive.
Well, yeah, the reason why I didn't think of it was that we have the 1924 are relatively new. We have 1913 and 1917, but it might just have, you know, this little neighborhood that, and it's not the whole city. And then, we have 1924. So I looked and boom, they had Webster Park. So, which is not in the other ones. So, yeah. But they're available. We have the hard copy and I have them digital if you ever want to me to send you digital.
another item along those same lines. As you know, we were going to take the documentation that the commission puts together for the city landmarks and get those in one place. And I started doing that work, and we have the documentation on the city's website for Bethany Lutheran Church, for 15 Marvin Ford, and for the Lestron houses. But when I started trying to go back in time to the previously designated landmarks, I am not finding the actual documents on the website, only a list of the titles of the supporting documents. So I don't know if the city has those actual exhibits archived somewhere, if they're digital, and if we might be able to access those digital copies so John can put them on the library's website. How would we look into that?
So go ahead, Neil, you go first.
Well, I'm guessing, but if there's an attic, and in the attic is lots of files, and it would be actually a fairly interesting thing to do one day to go up and just sort of figure out what's all up there. But they're here, we've saved records. I mean, many of these records we are required by the Sunshine Law to keep in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So they're stored, but they are not digitalized.
Okay.
So
So we,
One of the things I would suggest is we do, I believe, in the city clerk's office, have an intern starting relatively soon. So if you would make a list of what you would like, maybe the making those digital can jump further in front, to the front of the line, I guess is what I'm saying. I can't make that commitment on behalf of the city clerk, but it at least is worth giving it a try.
okay, and you know, we don't have to do this instantaneously because
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot. But I've started to identify, okay, it was this city council meeting where this district was approved, and here's the list of the exhibits. So perhaps just getting those links together would be a place to start to search for.
So there are indexes that
Yeah.
I know the city clerk keeps regarding just the sort of information you described, which is much easier to get to than going up to the attic. And if you're ever going to go to the attic, you go in the fall or the spring because it's not air conditioned or heated. So again.
As architects, we are aware of this.
And you take a respirator.
In a respirator. But Katie has indexes so that if you knew that something had happened at a certain date and time, she can find the index, get to the minutes, and show you in the minutes what's there. And typically she would have with the minutes any exhibits that would be attached as part of the minute or part of the minutes. Or again, then depending upon whether it's planning and zoning or whether it's whatever it is, they would also have their own independent records too. So there's a couple of different sources, but if you had something as important as the date, lots of things flow from it.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just start identifying those, and then when the intern arrives, we'll say welcome and ask if that's something we can start to pursue.
Sounds like Carol wants to be an intern.
It's not your time.
All right. So we also have some updates on 3185 South Brentwood, which I don't know how many of you noticed, but is no longer there.
Even grass is.
They have a nicely grassed area for us now,
Mhm.
but
So
uh,
I am very happy to report there's some traction on developing the process for a marker to put in that space. I've done some work over the past few weeks, and this is just my notes. There are probably lots of typos in here, so please forgive them. Please forgive them. But what I've done, I worked with, I contacted a colleague of mine, Dr. Moore, at the Missouri Historical Society, and talked to her about what I was trying to do, who's put me in touch with a woman by the name of Elizabeth Simmons, who works for Great Rivers Greenway. Now, Elizabeth and I have been emailing back and forth to try to pin down a time to have coffee. But she also put me in touch with Dr. Ward at WashU, which is African American Studies. And so Dr. Ward, he leads the Reparative Justice Coalition in St. Louis. And he's done work with the Community Remembrance Project and also has done some work with different historical sites around the city of St. Louis. And so I'm talking with the right people. It's just a matter of figuring out what the process is and how, where we'll get the marker from and what it's going to cost. And so we can present the Onder company with lots of good information they would need when they get ready to make that step. So I want to just let you know, I haven't just been sitting on my hands. I have been doing some work behind the scenes to try to move this forward. And as I get more developed, as things sort of crystallize, I'll be sure to let you all know.
And I've had a colleague at the library digging into Maria Powell and her background. He's been finding deeds for that lot, and also doing a genealogy on her background. We're trying to find out when she and her first husband, who initially owned that lot, when they came to Webster, to North Webster. It was, sometime in the 1880s. They were just trying to, they're on the 1880 census as being in, I think, in Central Township, which would have been, North Webster. But we don't, I think the earliest deed he found for that property was in the later 1880s. So anyway, when you come out next week to talk about your house, I can introduce you to Tim.
Please.
And yeah, he's sort of as a hobby, a genealogist. Okay. So I had him start digging into it further, and he's been finding a lot of stuff.
Wonderful.
On the family, even the lot next door to hers, the St. James family, were also Black migrants to North Webster, and they bought that property to be next to I guess his father-in-law, who bought a property from Maria Powell. So we're finding all those kind of connections for that.
Wonderful. That's great news. That's great news. And the Onder company has since gifted me 2 bricks.
I was going to my favorite got some bricks.
Yeah, so I have a picture of them on my phone. I'll email them out to everyone so you can see them. I mean, it's just a couple of bricks, but it's a story. It's a story, And so I'm going to keep one. But I'm going to give one to a member of Phi Beta Sigma. Dr. A.L. Reynolds was a member of Phi Beta Sigma, an early member of their fraternity. And as a fellow member of a different fraternity, I wanted to present them with a piece of their history. So I'll be doing that in the coming weeks. So,
if I may ask, have either of you spoken at all with Dave Dude, Reverend Dave
Yeah,
Dude?
yeah.
Okay.
I asked him
Good.
about Maria Powell.
Okay, good. Because I know that he's been deep in that for 2 years now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. She had remarried. Her first married name was Johnson, I think. And so I asked if he knew if he had come across that family at all. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
Right.
if that connection had been made, it was made.
It's the priest at the church.
Yes.
That's right.
thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. All right, great. So we got a few things going.
I have one little thing.
Oh, yes.
I'm drafting my next article for the Webster Groves Historical Society quarterly, and it's on the Lustron homes. And I will probably be sending that out for everybody to review this week.
Great.
And, we'll go clear.
Anything with your liaison?
I went to my first board meeting. I was never able to ascertain, and maybe you can tell me, Laura, whether I'm a voting member. I'm ex officio.
So you are a voting member in waiting. I apologize again, and I know I didn't. I apparently made a mayoral appointment that I forgot I made.
She was there at the meeting
Yeah,
too.
so we'll consolidate those two appointments when her term is up.
Okay,
But so per agreement with the president of the Historical Society, until at the time you're a non-voting ex officio. You can participate in every way except for voting.
yeah, I couldn't nail him down on that. He was.
He was probably trying to be really nice and
Yeah.
wanting me to give you the bad news.
That's okay. I didn't vote at the last one, but we have another meeting next week. So.
Great.
Can I share one more cool thing before we break?
Yes.
So, yours truly was featured in, I was a featured poet for the Juneteenth celebration.
It's all that.
Yeah, so it's in the Westbrook Corporate Times.
Yeah.
You know, you need to get and go back for some. Yeah,
Front page.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Since we're plugging things, June 21st at the library, I'm giving a talk on the what I'm calling the top 5 books written about Webster Groves.
Is it June or July?
July 21st, yeah, at 7:00.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Monday,
7 o'clock, I will be there.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Monday, July
21st, July 21st, yeah.
We've got, the street that, Laura and I both live on, there's a family that owns one of the Lustrum homes and really did it upright. I mean, they really tried to make it, back to its original look, and would probably love to talk to you about it if you would like to have some.
So what is her name?
Dino is their last name.
Dino?
And it's, Carrie's really the one that's taken, she's, really taken the lead on doing it. Looking into.
So
the
they don't
store-
live in it, they're just fixing it up?
Yeah, they live, they just fixed it up, and I think they rent it to a family member.
Was it one of the ones that we designated?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
even better. All right, I'll try to find
Yeah.
their contact.
Great. It's good to know someone's keeping.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about trying to give it a personal,
Yeah,
but I didn't know how to get with that or.
yeah.
But
It's really hard to remodel one of those.
Yes.
Very hard.
Yes, it is like, so when we did the research, it was interesting. There's like groups though online who like those houses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's groups even about how to maintain them
Yeah.
and repair them and take care of them in general.
Right,
Yeah.
because you use magnets or whatnot.
Right? Well, and everything's built in. I mean,
Yeah.
not gonna replace the cabinets.
So you're not gonna replace much.
Well, you don't need to, because it
No.
lasts a long time. There's one across the street from me that still has its original roof and its original siding. And the person has kept it in immaculate condition. There was one next door to me that when they wanted to have their Wi-Fi cable installed, the installer was not a happy man. It took a long time and they actually found it, they're made with war surplus materials. There were actually parts of their walls and ceilings that were made of order.
Well, they said once you put a hole in it, you'd never get rid of the hole.
Yeah,
Wow.
So it's just pretty.
it's not fixing drywall.
No.
But that armor
Can't
plate
patch
isn't going anywhere.
All righty. I don't believe there is anything else unless anybody has anything.
I move the adjourn.
That's the next step. So
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, great.